beach, and it was near downtown, one of the beaches. And so a number of us went down and waited for it. And we stood there and we heard and saw the waves crashing on the beach, as usual. And then all of a sudden, the waves didn't break. It was just a swell. The oil was coming in and it was holding the wave, the water intact and preventing the waves from breaking. So it just came in a wave on the beach, silent. All of a sudden you couldn't hear the waves breaking. You weren't even aware of the noise until it disappeared.
The well on Platform A was plugged after 11 days, but oil continued to surge to the surface for more than a year afterwards. Estimates of the amount of oil spilled range from 18,500 barrels to 780,000 barrels. The Coast Guard selected the round number of 100,000 barrels. How much marine life perished? No one knows for certain. Only the animals that drifted on shore could be counted, not the ones that sank, were buried, or washed out to sea. The California Department of Fish and Game reported that 3,600 birds had died. Of the 1,500 seabirds that citizens volunteered to clean at a waterfront station, only 168 survived. Referred to often as the environmental shot heard round the world, the Santa Barbara oil spill, for many, signifies the birth of the modern environmental movement.
I got calls almost every day from media all over the world, from Asia to London. The news press came to be known as the best source of information. Rather than going to public agencies or the oil industry, they called me.
Reactions to the oil spill reached the highest levels of government. Within a year, the Environmental Protection Agency was formed in 1970. The Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act following shortly thereafter. In California, the state Senate reacted severely against the oil industry. In 1969 and again in 1970, legislation passed that would have banned automobiles that relied on internal combustion engines. The bills were never signed into law. The blowout caused a near halt to any new oil production or development in the Santa Barbara Channel. Physically, these changes were reflected in the further deterioration of what is now Santa Barbara's top tourist attraction.
Stearns Wharf was always in need of repair quite a bit because it had been neglected for years and years, and the old pilings were just gradually getting eaten away. And
the fire had occurred out on the Harbor Restaurant in 1973, and by the mid-70s, after the fire of the Harbor Restaurant, the wharf had pretty much gone into decay. They kept it open for about a year. People would walk out here, but the wharf pilings were in such bad shape, the wood was in such bad shape, they finally just chain linked off the bottom of the wharf.
Two proposals emerged for the renovation of the wharf. The first was to increase the commercial space available on the wharf from 25,000 square feet to 90,000 square feet, making Stearns Wharf very similar to Pier 39 in San Francisco.
They thought that if you didn't have enough restaurants, people wouldn't walk out here just to go see the ocean. And I think the one thing that we argued, and has been proven true, was that people wanted an ocean experience. People described this as a plank park. They wanted to come out and experience seeing the whole waterfront, seeing the city from the waterfront. If you walk out on Pier 39 in San Francisco, you literally see a wall of buildings, and that's all you see is just wood. You don't see this. You don't see the city. You don't see the ocean. And people go out there and they walk around and they see a bunch of buildings and they turn around and they walk away.
The other proposal for the future of Stearns Wharf was even more drastic.
There were some council members who just wanted to tear it down. They decided that we should just completely get rid of it because it was completely falling in the ocean. You couldn't really walk out here anymore because half of the wharf was gone. And they wanted to build essentially extension of the breakwater. There'd be a rock quay out here and essentially it would close off the whole waterfront, much like Marina del Rey. And our idea was to take it back to the day of the fire, when there was 22,000 square feet of development, and just essentially go in for a fire rebuild.
The process for the renovation of Stearns Wharf has been used as a model for many types of redevelopment for other communities who see the value in its unique blend of an economic model combined with the heart of the community.
It's the culture of Santa Barbara that helped make this happen. I mean, we have a civic infrastructure here people being involved in everything. And you add that with the right time, which was right after the oil spill, and all of those things combined made it happen.
While many ecological and environmental efforts after the oil spill took place on the mainland, there was another citizen-led effort that had to do directly with the Channel Islands and the waters surrounding it.
I think the community really started to think about, if this kind of big oil spill can happen here, what can we do to better take care of this place and the wildlife that lives in this environment? So that was one event. The second thing that happened right around the same time was the DDT, which is a type of a pesticide that has made its way into the marine environment, is something that gets concentrated as it moves up the food chain. And the DDT had a very big impact on the pelican population. And the Anacapa Island is one of the most important areas for pelican breeding and nesting on the West Coast. And in 1970, there was only one successful chick that hatched on Anacapa Island. And so I think that was the start of people's thinking in terms of setting this area aside as a national marine sanctuary.
This particular region, or what some refer to as a bioregion, is one of the top 15 hotspots for threatened biodiversity in the world. So highly rich in diversity, and one reason it's rich in biological diversity is this transitional character. The marriage of mountains, foothills, creeks, wetlands, the channel, and the islands.
You've got cold water coming down from the north, coming into the channel, and it hits Point Conception and starts upwelling. And that's why the water isn't clear here. You've got this incredible upwelling, nutrient-rich, cold, deep water bathing these islands. And what that does is bring nutrients up so phytoplankton can thrive. And phytoplankton grows like crazy, which is why the water's green. Now there are a lot of little creatures eating that phytoplankton, small, larger creatures eating the little creatures, on and on and on. You've got an enormous food chain, ending with blue whales. We have one of the largest population of blue whales anywhere in the world, right out here every summer. It's extraordinary.
There's a place in the channel near Santa Cruz and Santa Rosa Islands where there's a steep drop-off. And the whales seem to congregate around that drop-off area. It seems to be a really good feeding zone for them. We think because of the upwelling and currents in that area that there's a huge abundance of krill. And both the blue whales and the humpback whales seem to really enjoy coming here. And so we're lucky that that area is accessible by boat, and we're able to get out there and observe them.
After several years of citizen-led efforts, both the Channel Islands National Park and the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary were officially recognized in 1980.
Congress recognized this area as being the Channel Islands as being a very important and unique place. The sanctuary encompasses the ocean habitat that extends from the mean high tide line out to about 6 miles around the northern Channel Islands, which are San Miguel, Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz, Anacapa, and then also Santa Barbara Island down south. And the entire area that the sanctuary covers is about 1,500 square miles.
We're blessed with an unbelievable channel. Between the Channel Islands out there, 26 miles out, and then the shoreline is this highway of creatures that is unique. I mean, you've heard, yeah, well, this is the, Galapagos of America, or a lot of analogies and tags have been put on this, and it's for a good reason, actually. It is incredibly diverse.
One of the most important goals of the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary and managing this area is to encourage lots of uses, to allow people to work out there, to play out there, and scuba diving and swimming and snorkeling and surfing and all of the other activities. So the goal of the sanctuary is to balance the multiple different kinds of uses of the sanctuary in a way that is compatible with protecting the marine sanctuary for the long term.
Threats to the marine environment are not limited to shipping or oil spills. By the 1990s, it became apparent that the biggest threat to the health of the Santa Barbara Channel was much closer to home.
Urban development has definitely impacted our oceans. There's been a lot more focus and attention on watersheds and how activities that occur on land actually have negative impacts on our oceans. This can be in the shape of pollution and runoff that is occurring, also habitat destruction that occurs with development.
The Santa Barbara Channel has always been a special place, just, you know, for my own personal enjoyment, the beaches, everything about it, the diving at the island. And so when the beaches started closing, having gone to the beach every day just for solace, I saw these closed beach signs and I was outraged.
We were getting phone calls of people getting sick all the time from the ocean. And this is when it was mostly because it was the end of a drought era, and most of our runoff was really just in the wintertime. And so the elected officials weren't paying attention to us. They were going, oh, it's just those surfers are getting sick because they're going in the ocean when they shouldn't be.
And so I went back into my research, but when I was a reporter, and took those facts and called up everybody that was involved in that research and asked further questions. And I turned in a manuscript that was 23 pages long, and it filled 2 whole pages of the newsprint. And it really came from my heart, and my last words were, can we change this? It's my prayer.
I think it was about 97, 98, we had major rain and rain late in the year, and we were having beach closures that persisted into the summertime. And so then we had the hotels where they were telling their constituents to not swim in the ocean because the water was dirty and it was closed. And that's when things really hit the fan.
There was a saying in the 50s, the solution to pollution is dilution. Just put it in the ocean and it will just dissolve and go away. Well, the ocean, when you have signs going up like this, some of them permanently anchored in the sand, the ocean is saying, I can't take it anymore. I can't handle all this.
The islands are going to be and are affected by the terrestrial inputs and the pollutants and the water quality and the general health of our coastal watersheds. Plumes of pollution or sediment reach the islands from Santa Clara or Ventura River, and that speaks to that connection between the coastal and the marine environment.
As we continue on into the second millennium, the day-to-day knowledge of those who work the channel is becoming increasingly important as we seek a balance between sustaining our resources and exploiting them.
There's now a collaboration going on between fishermen and scientists that I think is a relatively recent development and really encouraging, because nobody, and I defy a scientist to prove me wrong on this, nobody knows more about what's going on out there than the fisherman that spends all day, every day out there.
Actually, the people that manage the fishery have found it's better to hire fishermen to go do the research than it is to hire some yacht or some research boat. It costs too much money and they don't know what they're doing, and the fishermen know what they're doing, and they're coming up with a lot better results out of that.
I think we're entering a whole new era of reconciliation and working together with the various agencies and the fishermen and the biologists, all working toward common goals of biodiversity and sustainable fisheries. I think there was a period during which everybody had to sort of let their guard down and realize that we need to work together for common goals. I think we're entering that era. I think there's every reason to be very optimistic.
Much of the seafood in supermarkets in the United States comes from countries where the fisheries are unregulated or poorly regulated, both in terms of overfishing and problems with pollution.
Foreign competition has greatly impacted our local fisheries. We see a lot of product coming in that is at much lower costs that the public are supporting. These fisheries, however, often are not highly regulated like our local fisheries are. They don't have the high overhead and operating costs that occur with our local fisheries either. Thus, they can supply fish at a much reduced cost, even though they may not be harvesting it in an ecologically sound manner.
In Santa Barbara, the commercial fishing, I would say, is a dying breed. I'd say that maybe the last generation that's fishing is now fishing, and except there could be an exception of a handful or less than a handful of people, but if you look around the harbor, the lobster fishermen, the average age in California of a lobster fisherman, I think, is about 54 years old now. And the average age of urchin divers, which was a young man's fishery, I'd say those guys are 45 to 50 years old, most of them. Other fisheries like I do, you're looking at people up into their 70s, 60s and 70s. You're not looking at people 18 to 30, very few of them.
If people are interested in supporting sustainable fisheries and fishing communities, they really should think about buying local products. And again, these aren't necessarily available at their supermarkets, but if they go down to the harbor on Saturday mornings, they can find all the different types of fish products that we have in this area.
When you get rid of all the fishing, fishermen